This week on Country Fried Rock, I'm talking with Alaska native Todd Grebe, the songwriter and frontman for Todd Grebe and Cold Country. They've got a new record out called Citizen. Although Alaska is home, Grebe spent a few years based in Nashville while his wife's former band, Barefoot, took off. Since then, they've gotten married, moved back home, and had a baby. Congrats to them. We also want to send along our condolences to the Grebe family on the passing of his father recently. Our thoughts are with you. Tune in this week as we chat with Todd Grebe on Country Fried Rock. My guest today is Todd Grebe, all the way from Alaska. And yes, that is America, y'all. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So the title of your new record, Citizen, is aptly named, but tell me about that.
You know, Citizen is a song that I actually wrote a while back. It was on my first album back in 2008, and it was just a total kind of home recording deal that I did up here way before I ever moved to Nashville. I guess it was fairly popular up here in Alaska, and there's a couple tracks on there that I always wanted to kind of re-record, and that was definitely one of them. For whatever reason, I felt like it fit on this album and ended up being the title track.
So let's back way up to what led to you deciding to pursue music more than just a hobby.
I don't know. I mean, in some ways, it's just a good excuse to not do regular work. No, but I mean, honestly, just everything is kind of a graduation in this business. You know, I just started doing it like most people as a hobby, and then things pick up a little bit. And I just thought, well, as long as I can keep progressing, I'll keep putting, an equal amount of effort into it. It's kind of the short and skinny of it. You just stick with it incrementally, and, nobody sends you a certificate in the mail or anything and says, oh, you're now a professional musician. You just kind of wake up one day and you're like, oh, wow, the majority of my income is
this works.
derived from music.
Exactly. And they say, well, are you successful? And I'm like, well, it depends on what your definition of success is.
You've got to define it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's different for everybody. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with your definition as long as it's whatever works for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, ultimately, I end up wearing a lot of hats in terms of trying to make money. But for me, my main goal at this point is just to keep making good records. Well, I guess better records than the one I made before. That's what I'm trying to do. So as long as I'm doing that, I guess or feel like I'm doing that, then I'm happy.
Are you originally from Alaska?
Yeah, I was born and raised here.
Cool. And
lived here I was 29 when we moved to Nashville. So I lived up here, all of that time. And, my wife's band Barefoot at the time was doing really well. And they decided to move to Nashville because they got on Compass. Their booking agent was based out of North Carolina. It just seemed to make a lot of sense. Especially to try to tour out of Alaska can be difficult just with the financial overhead. So they wanted to move to Nashville, and I didn't really have much going on. I mean, I was playing up here kind of full-time and teaching, but it sounded like a great adventure, so I went along.
Hey, y'all, this is Sloan Spencer, the host of Country Fried Rock. We've had an incredible year with more people finding us on the radio and our podcast than we ever imagined. Thank you all so much. Careful what you wish for. You just might get it. We'd like to send a big thank you to our Country Fried Rock listeners for supporting Country Fried Rock alum Alan Thompson, who is recovering from a diving accident. If you'd like to donate, every dollar matters, and it goes directly to helping defray his bills. You can find that link on Country Fried Rock's Facebook or Twitter. It's a You Caring donation page. Keep your ears peeled for a few different benefit shows in the Nashville area for Alan Thompson. We love you, man. Get better soon.
Hey, this is Todd Grebe on Country Fried Rock.
Did you ultimately join that band?
I did. It didn't take very long. Once we got down there was a couple members of the band that just, I guess, maybe they thought they wanted to take it to the next level, but ultimately they decided it wasn't for them. And so they wanted to move back to Alaska and do other things. And so there was kind of like a little transitional period there where they were trying to figure out what they want to do. Basically, a long story short, they offered me the job as guitar player. That was right along the time that Nora Jane Struthers joined the band. It was like Barefoot 5.0, we called it, because they had a couple different lineup changes over the years. It wasn't necessarily exactly what I wanted to do, but I saw it as a really good opportunity to learn a lot more about being on the road on kind of a national scene. And, of course, I got to play my songs, so that made a big difference for me.
Barefoot in particular went through a whole lot of lineup changes in the middle of being fairly successful.
Yeah, Barefoot was definitely an evolution. I mean, they started out as a teenage band that was playing essentially traditional bluegrass. You got to realize they were around for 15 years.
Wow.
It's a long time, and to not evolve and progress would be unnatural.
I didn't realize they'd been around that long.
Yeah. Me and Nora Jane kind of just on for the last couple of years there, and some members kind of quit abruptly, and Angela and Jason were just kind of like, well, we have all this work out here. Let's put something together and go get that work done. And we didn't know if it would work, but it did. That version of the band did pretty good, so we had a lot of fun with it.
What led to you all deciding to return home?
Well, eventually, that version of the band dispersed. Everybody kind of wanted to do some different things. And so that kind of left me and Angela just trying to figure out what we wanted to do. Being in Nashville and not working full-time as a musician is difficult to justify, at least for me it was. So we were just kind of in transition, I guess. We came back to Alaska that summer. That was 2 summers ago. And we got married that summer, and then
cool.
we didn't really know what we wanted to do. So we bought a little motorhome and cruised around and visited a bunch of places and thought about moving back to Nashville full-time. So in there, we got pregnant, and so we just had a baby girl about 5 weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah, so, that we found out about that last summer while we were up here, and we just decided, this is where we're both from. Angela grew up here as well. All our family's here. We have a great band up here that we like playing with, and there's a lot of work, so we just thought, hey, let's just move up there for now, and we'll just see what happens.
The very first radio stations in the U.S. that picked up this show were a variety of stations across Alaska. And so the music certainly has an audience up there. And naivete on my part, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Alaska is a really interesting place. It draws a very eclectic, kind of eccentric group of people, very much arts-centric, culturally sensitive to what's going on, and people really appreciate that kind of stuff up here. There's a really strong community in that regard.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's great. We like that.
Hey, y'all, this is Sloan Spencer, the host of Country Fried Rock. Those of y'all who listen on our podcasts, it's a quick hit of just the conversation. If you want the full radio program with all the songs that we talk about, ask for it on your local radio station, joining 20 other stations across the country. Get the goods at countryfriedrock.org.
Hey, this is Todd Grebe, and if you want to check out our music or our schedule, you can find us at toddgrebe.com. So that's TODDGREBE.com.
And having the support of family and familiar locale and that sort of thing gives you some ability to be a little more free with what you're writing. How did this particular record come to be?
I had planned on making it probably a year prior when I was in Nashville, and I was going to do it kind of bluegrass style, actually. And really, the country music is kind of a new thing for us. Just for a variety of reasons, it didn't pan out to make it. We ended up making a little EP. But then the real catalyst was the first record I was telling you about that I made back in 2008. That was kind of the genesis of Cold Country. Nate May was the mandolin player. I've been playing music with him since we were, 18 or 19 years old. And he, the last few years, decided that he wanted to play Telecaster. So I guess it was the last couple summers that we've been coming up. We've really morphed the band into a country group. Just been experimenting with it and playing with it, and it's just been really fun and exciting to do something different. We love bluegrass, and we'll always play bluegrass, and it's such a great music form. Country music, in a lot of ways, came pretty naturally for us. So once we started playing that, I just thought, a lot of these songs really fit into that country mold, too. They're interchangeable. You can play them bluegrass style or you can play them country style. And we just thought, well, let's just do something different. And so that is kind of the genesis of it. And then specifically to record it when we did, we knew we were coming up on having the baby and moving back to Alaska. And I had to go to Nashville to sell all my stuff and my motorhome and ship stuff back up here. And I thought, well, while we're down there, we should just make a record. So we recorded it just this last November while we were down there doing that.
Got it. After a while of doing this show, I was like, oh, hey, I recognize these names of these other folks on here, too. So how did you end up working with Mike Bubb and crew?
So as soon as I moved down to Nashville, I guess it's been 5 years now, 5 years ago, I had already known Mike for a little while just through various bluegrass festivals where I was tagging along as Angela's date and hanging out backstage and stuff. We were pretty good buddies, informally and just kind of hanging out and jamming. And when I moved down there, I knew I wanted to make a record. And so he made my first record with me, Until Tomorrow. So I kind of got to know him pretty good right off the bat. As long as I was playing in the South, I think he pretty much played every show with me.
That's cool.
So he was kind of our Nashville cold country bass player. And the same thing with Larry. He was on that record, too. Larry Adaminac played drums on the Until Tomorrow album. I actually had another producer that was talking to me about making this record, and I was going to go with him, but it ended up being sort of out of my price range, and things kind of changed, and I just thought, man, I'm just going to go with the guys that I know, and we even recorded in the same studio with Fergie. That's the second time I've been in there with him at the butcher shop, and it just seemed so natural. There was less factors. I mean, it was already tough enough to switch over to playing like electric and country style. I was like, let's just mitigate some of this stuff and make it natural so we can just get in there and just relax and have fun. They're one of the best rhythm sections in Nashville,
exactly.
And they play together all the time, and it shows. Just a tremendous joy to be able to play with them.
That's cool. And you were able to bring in a couple of other special players to add a little sparkle as well.
Yeah, I had seen Steve Henson play around town. He plays everywhere in Nashville, and he's played with everybody. But I wasn't really thinking about that. I knew I wanted to have steel on it, and Mike recommended him. He said, well, why don't we get Steve in here? And it was just great. He just came in and did a bang-up job.
I'm your host, Sloan Spencer. You can keep in touch with us on Facebook, but I really like Twitter, where we are at Country Fried Rock, ending with R-O-K. And if you want to see pictures of my shoes, my dog, and my lunch, stop by Instagram. But whatever way you like to hang out, stop by and say hey.
Yeah, hey, this is Todd Grebe. If you're interested in buying the album Citizen, you can go to our website, or you can buy it online at iTunes or Amazon.
I was pleased to see Jimmy Wallace's name in there. He did this really, really cool record several years ago that we featured that was his take on all the characters from the Peanuts cartoon strip.
I love that record. It's so great.
That is one of the best unknown records out there.
Don't take my blanket.
I was just going to say that. My husband sings that every day, and now that you're a parent, it gives you a whole new meaning.
Oh, it's great, man. Yeah, no, that was another thing. I knew that I wanted keys, honky-tonk upright piano, and organ. Mm-hmm. Mike obviously works with Jimmy, and he was like, that's an easy call. Let's just get him in here. And he just came in one day and knocked it out of the park.
That's very cool. I absolutely had to bring that one up because truly that's like one of those totally under the radar records that if you can find it, you should buy it, y'all.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
Well, so then the process had a lot of familiarity in it with both familiar location and some familiar folks for you, but the changing with the style and going electric and all, you also brought in a couple of covers. What were some of the decision making that went into what kind of songs were going to fit this kind of record?
Just in general, I guess this is my third full-length record. I don't know, maybe it's not the most sophisticated way to think about it, but I'm like, well, these are the songs that I haven't recorded, that I like and am still playing. So there is a litmus test on the road in terms of playing live shows, and I have this bank of songs, and we try them out and we see how we like them, and they either pass or they don't. So these are all ones that passed, I guess, and I felt like, all right, well, we gotta get them down. I ended up bringing on... Let's see. Well, there's two songs on the album that aren't mine. One was written by a really good friend of mine that lives up here in Anchorage, and he's not really on the scene at all. He doesn't play out, but he's just this kind of super undercover songwriter. He had probably half a dozen really good songs for me to choose from, and I wanted to do more of them, actually, but that was the one, Brown Hair, that I really thought resonated and worked with what we were doing. So we did that, and then we threw in that Roger Miller tune. We'd been playing it for a while, kind of in the bluegrass formation, and it bled over into the country thing, and I don't know, I kind of went through like a Roger Miller obsession period. I'm probably still in it. I think it's kind of one of his lesser-known tunes. I just love the feel of it, and it's a nice little story, and it just has that Roger Miller swagger, and I just love it. I try really hard to have some direction in general in life, but I feel like in a lot of ways I'm just kind of along for the ride. And that, I think in some ways even applies to how I operate in the studio. I don't go in there with a very clear-cut vision of how everything is going to be. You can make a plan, but you'll probably just end up messing it up. So you just get in there and you just try to stay open. So
sure. What ended up surprising you?
I think the biggest surprise for me was just probably some of the feel of how some of these songs came out. I mean, I guess that's been the biggest, the most difficult part of the transition is, bluegrass music is very forward-leaning in terms of tempo and feel. Country music is a little more laid back, and so you're trying to navigate that transition. And so we were, in some ways, I think before we got in the studio, we were playing these songs maybe too up-tempo or with a forward feel. And so we got in the studio and we were able to figure that out. And that was something that Mike and Larry helped out with a lot. And they were like, why don't we dial this down a little bit and just try to give it a little more space. So songs like You'll Never Find Me changed dramatically in my mind. That's the one with the horns on the intro. And it totally has this laid-back feel, whereas before it was more like bluegrass or something. I don't know. So all these kind of little random things, that happen in the studio, and they're just split decisions that you make in the moment, and then they end up kind of having a great effect.
Are you playing them out in this manner now?
Yeah. I have a band up here that I'm working with. We're still cold country, but these are guys that I've been playing with on and off for 15 years. So Nate is part of the touring band, and then my good friend Connor McManaman and Andy King do the rhythm section. They're the bass and drums. In a lot of ways, the album has served as a template for how we're going to perform these songs.
It sounds like you're pretty comfortable with songs having a really long lifespan that can vastly change.
Absolutely. I'm still kind of with the idea that there's only a handful of songs that I play out in front of a live audience from my first record, but I still think, if they still work, then they're viable. Selfishly, it's just kind of like if I still like them. Although every once in a while someone will say, play that one song, and certainly we're obliged to do that. But it's all a process, but if it works, it works.
What's changing for your newer writing?
Well...
You're probably not doing anything, you just want to sleep.
Yeah, it'll streamline your life real quick. Luckily, we're in a pretty good situation right now where neither me or Angela are working full-time, and we have a pretty hectic gig schedule, but relatively that's not so bad because we're not really doing a lot of stuff during the day. So it's not that we're totally crunched for time, but what I was saying earlier about just kind of being along for the ride, I'm the same way as a writer. I don't do deadline writing. I don't wake up every day and write a little bit. I just go throughout my day, and if something strikes me, then I'll write it down and I'll try to work on it when I can. And sometimes you write a song in 20 minutes and sometimes it takes 6 months. And so I think now with the kid and all these other obligations, I really have to work hard to kind of carve out some space in my schedule to work on that. And I really have to be even more alert to those little moments of inspirato and trying to capture them. And luckily, we all got our smartphones now, so I can whip on the old voice memo and sing out an idea if I have it or text it down or whatever. But yeah, I'm probably going to have to be a little bit more deliberative in that instead of just being like the lackadaisical guy that just writes when he feels like it.
You said y'all are playing out a lot. How does that work for you literally, logistically?
The number one thing that I got going on is I have a weekly show that I do here in Anchorage at the Taproot. Me and Angela are kind of the host. And so we spotlight a different band every week, and then we do like essentially a jam. So that's kind of like our big outlet. And then on the weekends, Alaska is spread out. We're in Anchorage, which is kind of like the center in terms of the highway system. And there's a lot of action to get done within 100 miles. And every once in a while we'll branch out, to the southern extreme or the northern extreme, down to Homer or Fairbanks. But for the most part, it's all within about a 100-mile radius. We are booked pretty much every weekend this summer. So
that's fabulous.
Yeah, it's great. And there's a lot of little festivals up here and a lot of, fairs and regular gigs. And there's also a lot of private events. And we've been really getting into that the last couple summers. It feels like we have more work than we know what to do with right now, honestly.
The other Nashville-ish musician who is very Alaska-focused, who I always see posting beautiful photos, is Tim Easton.
Yeah, Tim Easton he's our honorary Alaskan. The title we bestow to just a handful of individuals, but he's been coming up here for, God, I don't want to say it wrong. I know at least 10 years, maybe even 15. He's in collaborations with local artists up here, and he brings people up here, and it's almost like he lives here, but he's just in and out all the time. So It's great. We loved him.
I actually saw him play in Knoxville, Tennessee, with a woman cello player from Alaska whose name escapes me. Sadie, I think, was her first name. Stunning player. As I looked her up after the fact, of course, she was like multi-award winning, but it was her first time ever playing outside of Alaska.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, there's, especially now, the scene has grown up a lot up here. When I was in high school, I think it was a lot tougher in terms of places to play and, really making a viable living, but you can do it. And there's definitely a lot of like great players up here that are just kind of out in the woodworks. So yeah, you never know. You're always running into like really talented people. I mean, we had the jam, and the other night this guy showed up that I'd never met, and was a killer pedal steel player. And I thought I knew all the pedal steel players up here.
Right.
But you just never know.
What other kind of cool stuff do y'all have on the horizon?
Well, let's see. We have a very busy schedule, and, I'm hoping to come down to Nashville in the fall. Me and Angela are going to come down there with the baby, and we're going to probably play some shows and just hang out and see all of our friends and probably try to do a CD release down there. One of the cooler things that just happened, I feel like everything's been kind of crazy, like trying to get the CD out and having the baby, and we did a Kickstarter for it, so it's been a lot, and then trying to plan this summer. But there's a foundation up here in Alaska called the Rasmussen Foundation, and they award grants for local artists. And we just found out about a week ago that we were selected, and so we just got a big cash grant that we're going to use to buy a new sound system and use to buy plane tickets as well for some travel expenses.
Cool.
So that's a nice little feather in our cap, so we're pretty stoked about that. It's a big deal for us. It's a nice chunk of money, and it's going to really push us to the next level in terms of delivering good live performances up here. We're up here in Alaska, but we still want to be able to tour outside of the state. And so we're working on doing that immediately with just coming down to the southeast. But I'm talking to a couple booking agents right now that like what we're doing. We'd love to take little trips out of here and play down in the States. Angela's been touring on the road for 15 years. I got a nice few years in there, and we love being on the road. We love going to new places and playing music. So we hope we can continue to do that even though we're based out of Alaska right now.
Safe travels to you all, and I hope that some of those end up crossing paths with us over the next few months.
All right. Sounds good, Sloan. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate it.
You as well. And congrats on the baby.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
countryfriedrock.org. Copyright 2015. All rights reserved. Our 2015 bed music is from Drivin' and Cryin's debut album, Scarred But Smarter. Got a great band you want to hear on Country Fried Rock? The best thing to do is tweet us at Country Fried Rock. That's Country Fried, R-O-K. You can subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes. Just search Country Fried Rock. Country Fried Rock radio programs are distributed to public radio through the Public Radio Exchange, prx.org. Our Country Fried Rock stinger is from Steve Soto and the Twisted Hearts.
Ever he been helping us some country fried rock.